Ben bir giriş yapayım, sizi tanıtayım.
Tamam.
Sonrasında da size bırakıyorum zaten. Hani, so the talk will be in English, so I will start by just introducing our guest. We are thrilled to welcome Gökçen Erkılıç with her talk, Tracing Territories, a Cartographic Timeline of Northern Istanbul, in our 120th episode of Mekan Konuşmaları, which is hosted by students of graduate programs here in BİLGİ. The talk will be focusing on Coastliner Lab's works and mapping, with a particular focus on the Coastline Atlas project situated in Istanbul. Gökçen Erkılıç is a data artist, architect, urbanist, educator, and founder of Coastliner Lab, a transdisciplinary research and design initiative exploring aquatic intelligence, hydrocarbons, and collective sensing practices in water systems. She is teaching at Northeastern University College of Arts, Media and Design, and is affiliated with Mekan Lab at Harvard University. Her works have been published, exhibited, and performed at Ocean Archive, Sarah Biennial, Art Letters and Numbers, Material Architecture, Dirty Drawings, Thought Research, Art, Yazı Critic Culture and Art, Sarah Museum Manifold Press, Venice Architecture Biennale. And thank you so much for coming here today. We are very excited to hear from you, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this introduction. I'm overwhelmed with my own bio, to be honest. And sometimes like it's an existential moment whenever you're presenting for a group of students about your work, about like what you have been up to in the past years. I have like started questioning what am I doing? So this is going to be an overview. Like it's not going to be an in-depth because the time is very limited. About like some of my works that have been clicking in the past few years. But also I will of course be introducing my own practice, which are really centering on the coastlines. So if you may allow me to share my screen, that would be great. Send requests dedim. Okay. Desktop team. All right. I hope you can see this, right? And I hope you see the right screen. Yeah, I hope so. Okay, so yeah, this is me, and today I have actually decided on focusing on my ongoing project called Coastline Atlas, which is bringing together water data and commons in a particular project based in Istanbul, but I am also working in international contexts. But before dipping into that, why is data important? Why is the data of water important? These are like cutting edge questions in the world of data science or planetary climatic contexts. And one thing that you would see, like if you were to just like look at some planetary data related visualizations or like narratives, most of these are frequently fragmented. Like most of them are also like encompassing large territories, planetary scale regions, or like you can find a lot of precipitation data. You can find a lot of data about groundwater systems, rivers, seas, droughts, and so on and so forth. But I think like with this excellence of measuring water across these global data sets has a lot of limits as well. And these limits have started to hit our everyday lives and in the way we are understanding water and we are like learning to live with watery habitats. So what I'm arguing is that like this kind of like efficiency in the ex ongoing data practices can also hide a lot of forms of like ground up realities of communities living with these watery systems and real world problems. And often they're also lacking the information about the extractive systems that have actually been shaping the water geography, water related geographies. So this is kind of like the essence of why I think pursuing this project called Coastliner Lab, which has been active for I think about 5, 6 years now. And it's a lab that I mean I have background in architecture and urbanism, and in my postgrad and postdoctoral studies, I have tapped into data studies with mapping and urban geography. So this lab is bringing together these disciplines together, and as well as like computational methods to design platforms or like design mediums that that can allow more intimate, more ground up ways of understanding water. So the lab itself has some projects. Most of them have been published in the aforementioned platforms, or like they have been in forms of articles or maps. Most of them are focusing on the geography that I'm coming from, which is not, which is like Istanbul and the environs, like Black Sea, Eastern Mediterranean, in larger scales as well. And I have been living in Boston, so I have been running some projects here as well as the Caribbean Sea. So it's kind of like fluctuating between these like transnational geographies a little bit. So before starting really showing a few of my works, I think it's gonna be important to highlight what do I mean by coastline, because it's like such an abstract geometric concept. But you can find like an entire history of like mapping and understanding the world by just looking at how coastlines have been represented, surveyed, and shared in different media. When you look at this kind of like technologies as well, is part of this, the development of technology, satellite imagery, surveying technologies, militarist technologies, or ways of measuring the world, has actually been constructing these representations to grasp the territorial geometries of conquest or colonization or settlements or planning or and etc. It's like basically a way of the way humans are inhabiting on this earth, on this planet, which is a very anthropocentric and anthropogenic tool. So coastlines are not just abstractions in this context, but these are like ways we appropriate the world with technology and colonization basically. And there are other problems in the way we have mapped watery bodies, as I argue. And some of them are like we have been mapping seas as infinite resources for landfilling. We have been also mapping rivers as freshwater source for data centers. We have been mapping straits as maritime economic zones. Well, we have been creating a lot of divisions as well, as long as we are mapping or delineating these coastlines as lines marking the geography. One of the best examples on that is in the Invention of Rivers. Dilip Kunha talks about the colonization of the Indian peninsula by defining what the River Ganges is, and it has actually been mapped by the British colonists to grasp the territory. So, like by just trying to define where water land division is actually marked, is itself a work of appropriation, colonization, and design, as I argue. I can talk infinitely about that, but to simplify the question, this is a and a representation of the very first coastline map that I have ever found in my studies. It's dating all the way back to 15,000 years, and it's a description or like a representation of a settlement in the banks of the Mezerich River, which is all the way up in Ukraine in present day. And what you see here in the top line is the settlements, like the houses and the organization of the smaller village and the settlement. And on the bottom, where you see like two parallel lines and like arrow-like depictions, those depict the river that the settlement was actually next to, and it depicts the flow currents of the waters, which was also important for the inhabitants for fishing, like information about how to navigate the river, etc., etc. So just like thinking of like the urbanistically, our settlement has actually begun at the shorelines as well, but its depiction is also dating as long as we have inhabited this world. Another argument that I have about coastlines is that they are like the precision or the technology or the resources to map a coastline is parallel, it has been growing parallel to the growth of power. So this can be seen most clearly in the left map that you're seeing, which is the map of the world by Strabo, who is actually a geographer and who is like considered to be the establisher of the Western geography 2000 years ago, and he was born in Amasya, present-day Turkey as well. And what you can see in this map is like quite striking to me. And a lot of maps in the time, like if you look at the map of the world in evolution, have been like really focusing on the areas that they have been inhabiting. In this case, he was part of, like he was making these maps and writing this whole, books on geography for the emperor in Roman Empire in that case. And you can see that you may start to recognize where Turkey is at the moment, where you can see the Euxine, the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea, parts of the Aegean Sea, and of course the Mediterranean with more precision and with more accuracy that you can still in present day with like the image of the world in your minds, you can almost read it. So those have been like more higher in resolution, to put it another way, than the rest of the world, which was less part of this power system of the empire. So the rest of the world could just look like, like weird, bean-shaped and abstracted geometry as well, whereas the parts that were known better and that were controlled better were mapped in more higher precision. And if you, of course, like I'm also a lot interested in non-Western cartographic evolutions of how coastlines have been mapped. And the right, you see Al Idrisi, which is like seeing like a little bit after Strabo, of course, and a lot of like Western and non-Western cartography. If you look at the history, that they have influenced each other a lot. So I'm not like seeing them in two like really separate groups, but they have been starting to like see like like the map of the world is tilted. For example, you are seeing the Mediterranean, if you can notice, like it's this like blue area on the right side of it. And it has started to also add like the lines that have been depicting the rivers, etc. Another thing that I really find fascinating about like these ancient cartographies is that they do not really have strict boundaries between the coastlines that are bordering the rivers versus the coastlines that are bordering the oceans or the seas. Present day, if you look at the current data systems, if you were ever trying to make a map of Istanbul, for example, you would find the data sets of the river systems or the freshwater systems are totally different from the data sets of the rivers, oceans, etc. But we all know that like water is something that is like fluent and like in flux between these like different geographic spaces. So I really find it fascinating to see that like those have been actually mapped all together, and those were the first things for these ancient explorers, geographers to understand the world. And of course, Piri Reis's maps might be familiar, or like Divan al-Lughat Turk is also important to see like how like our geography and our people have been actually quite masters of mapping coastlines over the centuries. But like another thing that I want to just like drop here is like coastlines do not exist. And I hope this will just like settle a little bit better in its space as more as I proceed in my presentation. But of course, these are like whenever you're in a, you know, like you're encountering a body of water, you definitely like do not have a strict like separation between land and water unless it's like a constructed and like engineered landscape. It's usually a very blurred boundary that we are talking about. So with all these like deep contemplations about like lines and drawing them, I have found myself really settling down into these questions most. So one of them is like, who is drawing the line? And like, why are they drawing the line that actually does not exist? And for whom is the line drawn? Like, what kind of institutions or like power related aims these can be associated with? On top of that, my PhD had been focusing on the coastline in Istanbul, and it was actually back in the day was inspired by the construction site, which is present day Galata port of Galata. If you see that, probably you won't actually see all the pillars, but like in back in the day, we have like witnessed the construction of the waterfront, the coastline itself within a couple of years. And it was not just limited to that, but the city was undergoing a lot of like harsh, large scale projects, infrastructure projects, landfills, and other like water related infrastructures in very short amount of time that were that I positioned them as like case studies of like how the coastline is not actually a fixed boundary as well. Like you can it has been in flux, it has been engineered, it has been altered many times by different motives. And I have been discussing this in the context of planetary urbanization in my PhD, which is a phenomenon that had been coined by Henri Lefebvre, who is looking at the like production of urban space in the planetary context, and his main argument is like the like the urbanity or urbanization or the urban systems that we are building, they are now at the scale of the planet. So it's really difficult to pinpoint or mark where a city begins or ends, right? So like it was about this like extent of like the city, also the extent of our anthropogenic imprint on the planet, and how these like relationships of our relationships with boundaries have been actually altered drastically by this kind of theories. And of course, I have been like looking at more than human parameters or like factors that have been acting on the coastlines. And then I started focusing on like the cartographies that have presented coastline in Istanbul in different ways. So, of course, like if you just like, even if you read Italo Calvino in Invisible Cities, it says that like if you were to pinpoint, like if you were to recognize a city just by looking at its coastlines, Istanbul is kind of like it basically presents this genealogy just by looking at it. You see the strait, you see the two seas that are connected, you see the Golden Horn, You see other lagoons and the islands, etc. But like it's such a characteristic place to study coastlines indeed. And of course, like when you just start layering down these watery habitats that are not just on the water, like on the seaboard space, but also in the inland, it has this really intricate waterways that are connected inside in the inland. And I landed on actually finding like seven critical zones that I would call that have that the monitoring of the coastline shifts and like how they have been engineered and then transformed and blah, have been interesting. So I'm not going to go into all of the details of that, but like one of them is the Yassada, which is an island. I will be talking a bit more about that. Another one of them is Galata Port. I have a case study from Haliç. Another one is from the Kağıthane Ali Beyköy river systems. And another one from the Tayakadın, where the lake systems have been buried under the airport aprons, etc. So these have been like different like coastal forms that are differing also like an island and like like Haliç or like a Golden Horn, an estuary, sorry, or a lake ecosystem or a lagoon ecosystem or like an inland water network. These are all like considered to be different bodies of water or like geographic typologies that I have tried to like trace in this study. And of course, it's not like just I mean, coastlines are rarely only about coastlines, and like while doing that, I have been looking at the social tensions or political tensions that have been acting on these things. And most of these like larger changes, just by looking at the cartographies over like centuries, you start to see that the most drastic shifts have been between the years 2013, which I mark by the construction of the Yenikapı landfill, and until 2020s. And this is basically more or less like the same time that I was writing my PhD thesis. So this is like presenting what I mean by delineating a coastline and tracing it over different cartographic media. This is a lake that has been disappeared and currently under the aprons of the airport. And the idea is to like really slow down and not just like see these lines as like or like bodies of water as disappeared habitats, but really paying attention and like looking at that line and its shapes and its like fluctuations together in order to make sense. And also it has a lot of elements of meditation to it, like slow down and like really attend to these maps. And I ended up after this like long PhD, and part of that was continued here at Harvard by looking at over 200 cartographic resources spanning all the way back in like 150 years about Istanbul. For example, here you see, like I don't have a cursor here, but you see on the right top, the white one, the brightest one on the right side, is a mini Müsaademe map that has been made in the late Ottoman period in order to like organize the flow of the port logistics, including the maunas, the ships, where would they like be buoyed, that where would they be anchored, how would the like whole city or the port was to be organized, etc. So a lot of like port related master plans were in my radar, as well as I really was interested in like oceanographic surveys that have been trying to map the seabed, which is like an overlooked subject because when you look at the seabed, you start seeing a lot of things in Istanbul as well, such as like cable systems. You start seeing underpasses, like large infrastructures of like tunnels or even fault lines, or even the way Bosphorus is like formed. You can see like remnants of this like topographic thresholds by looking at these also scientific cartographic evidences. So I'm really interested in like really how seeing how movements do take place, like how the movements of water, like the flow of water, etc., takes place in this watery body that has been shaping our city, as well as how do we map that. And like I'm just fast forwarding this a little bit now into this platform that I have been working on, which is called Istanbul Coastline Atlas. This is an online platform which is already available at the moment. It's called, I mean, in istanbulcoastlineatlas.com if you can visit it. It's in the beta version, but it's finally like bringing together some of the more critical narratives or zones that I have been interested in, and looking at some of them actually with a collective effort of mappers that I'll be talking about. So, for example, in this atlas, you can just navigate into different parts of the city, and I will just like give a sample of how it basically works. You get to see like different tracings of coastlines of certain geographies that we have mapped and have been translated into geographic information systems and now is interactive. And in these, you can also like this digital interface is coupled with workshops where we look at like these historic evidences of alterations, and we also trace and retrace and remake maps with a group of participants and add our own layers and like questions, etc., about these places. And we also like investigate like underwater habitats. In this case, if you may also be aware that this is Yassa, the area which has been turned into a luxury hotel from a former prison island, and there have been like last surviving corals that have been in the upper Mediterranean ecosystem were found here, and there are still corals in the Marmara Sea, by the way. It's so shocking, but it's such a beautiful thing to find. And activists and like divers have actually, in coordination with the municipality, not municipality, the like the governmental institutions, let's say, have actually transplanted these corals that have been drastically just wiped out from this rigorous construction into another island in the sea. And I find it quite interesting that, like, after this transformation, this island has been renamed and it's called, it used to be Yassada, now we call it Democracy and Freedom Island. And yet, like, it does not really bear full freedom for its, like, all inhabitants. And last summer, with the project that I'm running at SALT at the moment, which is called Water Assemblies, we have been running workshops on deep listening and visiting some of the sites that are in this atlas. So this is the island of Niandros that we have gotten a chance to take a boat. I was not present there, but my friends did that, Bardia did that, and Merve. And we have navigated there. It was like idea of like going there, finding these corals and seeing how they maybe look like and checking in on them. And also, we have been adding an element of sound recordings that are recording the sounds of underwater with hydrophones. So I don't know if sound is available to you, and I don't know if you can hear this. And I hope you can hear this, and if not, maybe it might do the recording. Anyway, this is a hazy and very, glitchy sound that you're hearing. Is part of our underwater recordings in the Marmara Sea. And we have actually worked on like how do we see what kind of different frequencies do we see there, what kind of different sounds are shaped or reshaped underwater, and what can we just like how can we relate to this like piece of water in more than visual sensory systems. So like this deep listening itself is adding another depth to how we make these maps together. I can unpack that a little bit further, but before that, like after all these research and I was sitting with all these maps, which I had no idea what to do with, some years ago, I really took a turn to like transform this practice into a collective effort that I run with a lot of students or like enthusiasts, artists, or anyone who is basically interested in these in mapping Istanbul's water bodies. And I have been running several workshops, and these workshops are really focusing on like personalizing the data that we find in this like large data sets, and by also adding the people's own perspectives or own readings on them. So it's kind of like cultivating a form of data literacy for not necessarily data literate audiences, and also asking questions. And that's like I think more important to me, part of this like Atlas project. It's more investigative rather than it's finding questions, finding answers to like this whole formation process. It's really more of a provocation on asking questions about like when you're drawing a line, like how did this like came up, and what kind of ecosystems did it have, what have been lost in this transformation, or what can be regained by rehabilitating these watery bodies. These are all ideas and like layers that we're really interested in these workshops. And we also like these workshops are also an interesting way to like step outside of the hyper digital world of maps that we are mostly used to, and we really print them out, like categorize them. I have been like really like indexing most of the content in forms of play cards, so that it's grouped in different, like these critical zones that are focused on certain themes. And we start really like making doodles, and these are, for example, examples from these workshop outcomes, which like I just like ask participants to just close your eyes, like do not even think about anything visual, and like try to map a piece of coastline. How does that appear in your mind, and what does it mean to you? Like, so we definitely tap back into the core memory of these water bodies. And by really like spending so much time and so much and like really slowing down in order to understand these lost and found coastlines in the city, they also start to become more like characters in a way. Like an island, for example, is like a really elegant character that has been transformed into something like as absurd as a luxury hotel, or like a lake ecosystem is definitely something that is like really complex, really like had a lot of, complex ecosystems together. And another thing, for example, this is the web of the Kağıthane Ali Beyköy river systems that we have been mapping. And I actually found a really good set of maps here that is depicting the water networks of the city in its highest resolution and with the highest level of information, let's say. It's a British Army map that has been copying the late Ottoman Erkan-ı Harbiye maps. So, and like imagine these are mostly like militaristic technologies that have been used for surveys, but now, like after maybe a century, I find it quite interesting that the citizens of the city are like pulling them out, like tracing their own understandings and of these usually lost watery habitats. And then in these workshops, this is an example from the 2024 workshop that I led. We translate this information into the digital maps. So it's like kind of like oscillating between the more embodied analogous ways of mapping versus the digital mapping. They're also coming together a little bit. And I have been working with the Water Assemblies project, which is still ongoing. We will be releasing the first online publication in the upcoming weeks, I believe. And it's actually bringing together a constellation of other practitioners in the field, just like me. And Coastline Atlas was part of it, and their intent was actually to like make things more public and more accessible. And this has been on my agenda for a while now. How are we going to make the information that is hidden in these cartographies more accessible, meaning that like just anyone that finds any form of belonging to the city can actually relate to them and understand them and read them. So with in that aim, we have started also like making coalitions, not just like staying within our own bubble of artists, architects, etc. I have reached out to oceanographer Nazlı Demirel from Istanbul University, and she has informed us a lot about like how the oceanographic surveys have been going on in the Marmara Sea, and also she's also a marine biologist, so we have been also like trying to understand the impact of these larger ecosystems and smaller marine habitats. We have learned more about the dolphins, we have talked about the corals, etc. So this that aspect of like scientific research is also kind of like blending with we are trying to blend it as an interdisciplinary practice with that kind of information into this map. And we have worked with the Urbana studio, who is like tracing between art, technology, and science in their own practices. So I have collaborated with the workshop leaders that have run the workshops for this in this section. And one of the most iconic, I think, moments of this series in Water Assemblies is this deep listening fragments. As I said, we have started with a hydrophone. A hydrophone is like a device that allows you to record sounds under as deep as like 15 meters underwater. So we have been running these two workshops with Bardia, who is also a ethnomusicologist, and like he's also working in sound studies. Collaborating with them has been also great. And we have been running these listening sessions. And what I'm trying to actually get to in these sessions is like how can listening, like adding this like auditory element to like understanding a coastal habitat or ecosystem, influence the way we map it. So one of the things that are striking like outcomes of these workshops is that like the underwater is like nothing like the Cartesian system that we are used to in making maps. Like we do not have a like strict spatiality underwater. What do I mean by that is like, for example, sound travels 5 times faster than it does in the air, in water. So the sounds come much more faster to you. And another thing that water can also bend sound. Air also bends sound, but water is as a more like dense material, it bends them even more. And some of the sounds that are underwater, like for example, you have a motor or like a vehicle or a ship like just passing by several, maybe even like a kilometer apart, sounds like it's so close to you. Or another thing that it does, that it's like it can also bend space. So with the currents of the water, like certain sound waves can travel in the path, not linear paths, but they can travel through curves. So it means that like you may hear something that is like perhaps like all the way around like the island itself, like you can hear something behind the island much more better, as you would hear it when you are like just up in the air, hearing from the air. Anyway, so these are really interesting things, and I have asked like a lot of the participants to look at like older maritime maps and like remap them with their own reassembly of such data that they can see in the coastline or the coastal landscapes. And at the moment, this atlas is like kind of like in midway where I'm still like exploring how to integrate the sound and listening practice as a practice and also like a visual or sonic data set into this map. Another thing that we are doing is like listening, since we are like really getting deeper into the listening part of understanding maps and watery habitats. We have a playlist that brings together songs and yeah, mostly songs about not just about lyrically about, but also like rhythmically or like ethnographically about the water in and around Istanbul. So that playlist will also be part of this web, let's say, publication that is coming up. And yeah, so there's a lot to talk about. Like another important thing about this platform is that I wanted this not to be a platform that is like we put there. Like I'm not really interested in making maps that look beautiful, long story short, or I'm not really interested in making maps that you just like put somewhere and like they just stay there. I'm interested in like how users or people, anyone can add their own data or their own drawings or their own layers on top of that. So I have been working and collaborating with this web developer friend to create and turn this map into something that can gather data from the user. So like in one of these, like we have like already traced data that are embedded in that, but like for example you can like add like notes here. For example, we know about like this like Sarayburnu offshore area is a favorite place for the dolphins because of the water flows that are hitting all the way from Bosphorus, and that's a place where the smaller fish can like come all the way up to the surface of the water, and that makes it really a favorite place for the dolphins to do some, feeding, like eating the smaller fish. So that's why you see them more there, or like information about like this water network. This might be familiar. That also maps not just. Oh, I didn't really put that one, but it maps like a lot of um, cemeteries, springs, bostans, mandiras, all these like urban, not suburban, like not also rural, like but like the landscape features that would be evident 100 years ago in this currently urbanized landscape. So those are also mapped in that um, in that fragment. And finally, the feature that allows the users to make tracings and make drawings on top of this map is, I think, my favorite. So you can not just like make drawings, but also like trace your own coastlines and also save them as JPEG or GIS data, and for example transfer that into other maps as well. So it's kind of like allowing you to shift between different maps, but also like I envision this to be collecting more and more data from these workshops, from the users, to populate actually this space, which is one of the most essential elements that gives life to the city, I think. And like this is not functional only in Istanbul. You can like navigate anywhere else in the world, basically, and use this platform. I have a lot of people to thank, including our participants, including contributors to this project. So how am I doing in terms of time? Maybe just quickly go over a few other things. Like this project is another project that I just did a couple of years ago. It was mapping. I make a lot of maps myself, and it actually looked at the Eastern Mediterranean, the sea itself, and how the political, let's say, economic zones have been shaped there, and juxtaposing that with the birds migration routes. I didn't really put all the details of that project here, but it's kind of like looking at these like contested, let's say, bodies of water, and how also the extractive systems such as the oil industry, the natural gas resources are like extracted out from this space. Another project that I have done was this one is about the polymetallic nodules, which connects this whole inquiry on mapping the seabed into the narrative of like how energy systems are shaping the planet, and also is related to the, again, the planetary urbanization framework that I've been really interested in. Like these are no nodules that are found in the very depth of the oceanic floors, that are like 4,000 meters below the surface of water. And most of them are found in the Pacific Ocean and other parts of the world. And I've run this research about, and these like are resourced for industries such as they have like metals like manganese, cobalt, copper, nickel that are used in energy related infrastructures such as the wind turbines or the cables that the data centers are using, or the batteries that we are using, or the cell phones, etc. So these are metals that are resourced, and the narrative behind mining these potato-sized nodules is that like to find alternative solutions to the landward extractive industries that are currently mining these rare minerals on the earth. So to some, it's a really highly debated issue. To some, it's like it can have a solution, or not a solution, but like really reduce the pressure on the landward resources, or extractions that are impacting the communities and the people who are like settled in these lands, versus the counter debate is about how is this extraction system is going to affect the underwater ecosystems and habitats. To some, since because it's like really deep, it can like it there's a rare evidence of life, but like scientists are also still discovering that there are evidences of life in those depths. And also like all sorts of like technology related issues are embedded in that. So my question about this was, there is no actual extraction going on in the Caribbean Sea at the moment, but this is not playing for some reason. Anyway, but I made a map that connects the different players in the system. You're not able to see it, but this is an interactive map that connects the materials that are that these companies are interested, and also it was part of an investigative journalism project also, that was really focusing on follow the money, who's funding who, what kind of institutions are involved, and what kind of states are involved. And like one larger story, which is not surprising to us, is that in the Caribbean, like most of the larger countries that are involved are like Canada, Netherlands, and UK and United States, whereas like the local authorities are really like still struggling to like have a power and word in let's say projects, and you see the vulnerable habitats, and like there's a lot of course like coral related issues in the region. And another project that I recently published was about the Black Sea, which is, I think, a really understudied. I realize that it's a really understudied body of water, even in Turkey. A lot of things can be done, but the question was like here, a group of political strategists and architects, a group of historians and even sociologists, anthropologists, most of the humanities and like international political, let's say, contexts were discussed in several sessions, and they were asking like, how do we understand the Black Sea? I mean, and then of course this is all about like understanding the scale of its impacts in certain ways in terms of infrastructure and connectivity. And this map is showing the region all the way from the Nord Stream, which has been cut by Russia during the conflict, which has been like transferring oil to the Europe, all the way from there to like Eastern Mediterranean region, which like is also another conflicted region, and how the oil resources and also like hydrocarbon research activities, as well as natural gas transfers, have been shaping the region in terms of pipelines or connections. So it also like look at how fragmented how like fragmented is the impact of a sea in when you look at like all these like barriers and political borders, and there's a lot of course inward like the Danube or like other rivers systems in Russia like the Don, etc., that are allowing a lot of like border conditions, creating border conditions in the uh, fluency of these energy systems, etc. So it was like an exercise on trying to understand, trying to understand the body of water. In this case, a sea is like always like a really like fragmented and large scale, even planetary scale inquiry. Um, so I think I will just slowly wrap up. There have been other, data related experiments that I've been going on. A lot of these things have been published in different magazines or journals or let's say conferences, etc. And this one was about was a collaboration I did with BİLGİ and at BİLGİ. Probably you know her, and it was about mapping the invisible cities, the places that thought I saw invisible cities in Istanbul. So all sorts of things. Okay, so one last question that I may pose, and I'm still like trying to understand, is like at these planetary critical zones of coastlines, the water bodies we inhabit, they do bear witness to a really complexity of relationships, including health, energy, political struggles, social life, collective memory, and systems that are essential for us to envision futures together. And social justice and climate justice and even more is embedded in these geographies. And how my question is still like, how can planetary data or data about these places translate itself into community action, into like this activation, and how can this recreate and reform our understanding of water, which is already an intelligent matter, and for us to understand the aquatic intelligence that is hidden within it in these hydrocommon networks. So let me stop here, and yeah, I guess this is like a nutshell. I don't know if I have used my time wisely, but I'm happy to have reflections. Doesn't have to be questions, but if you want to talk further, I can do that. I have about half an hour, I think.
For the question. Gökçen, thank you very much for all the great materials you shared with us. I mean, the visuals and the narrative behind it was really amazing and inspirational for our studio work as well. Before continuing with the question, I was wondering one thing about the workshop process. Is it okay if I start with the question? In the beginning, you said coastline does not exist, or was it this is not a line? And then during these participatory mapping workshops, the people were drawing the coastline line as a participatory act. So how does these two combine? Were you intending to create a, I don't know, consciousness about the moving nature of this coastline? How does this combine? I was wondering that.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's we are tracing the coastlines that you cannot find today mostly. So those are like lost coastlines. So it's actually an argument about like when you just like open up any map at the moment, like the Google Maps or the municipality maps, they're like not really giving us the full information about how that body of water looked like or was actually like networked or like seen in previous like let's say like in history. So it's about like correcting the maps that are given to us a little bit and making those corrections and also like those are like layered on top of one another, so you don't get to see one coastline in a map that but you start to see like a layer of shifting coastlines. So it's an argument that like it doesn't exist is it means that it's like a I mean, of course, it's about the surveying technologies that have been trying to mark that split between where water starts and land begins. And like technically, coastline is defined as the border between that. But what we are trying to do is like, how about we trace the borders of the water itself, not the land? Like not to try to approach that as a like territorial construct, but what if we just really focus on the water body and try to trace its extents and see how that looks on a map. So that is more or less about like maybe complicating the question of coastlines a little bit. But that you're right, we are reproducing coastlines most of the time, which is more of a diagnostic fragment in the workshop. Like, and then after we go there and try to listen to it and like find other ways of engaging with it.
As a continuation of the same question, is there a specific scale that you prefer? Because the scale that you draw this coastline also something that matters, because the more you kind of take the line from a distance, the more it disappears. So it's also changing by scale. So what's your thoughts about?
Absolutely. I love it. It's a fractal geom, and like fractals have been like the concept, the mathematical concept has been emerging from coastlines themselves. So, like as you said, there will always be a scalar, let's say, loss when you just like look like go upper in the scale and like go down to it. And I love it. And in my PhD, I was arguing that there's no scale on a coastline. Like you cannot like specify any scale on it because it's like it just like translates into all scales that you can find. And it's just a human construct. Like it's a way of like in human cognitive behavior, like that's I mean this is like a little bit deeper, but you like we understand the world through thresholds. That is also like something that is like that enables us to understand and comprehend the world, and that is why the world map has always been first traced by the difference between land and water. Like the first understandings of our environment always included this split, like this is water, because it changes the way we inhabit it. Like I don't have that, I didn't put that cartography here, but like it really changes the way we understand borders in a way. But I do not approach that line as like something that is that we fix it, you know, like it's something that we engage with it. And I'm more interested in the delineation of it, almost like a calligraphic work, you know, like just slowly tracing it, and with all the curves and with all the let's say questions that arise when you're tracing it is more important to me than just like making a map or like trying to fix the scale of the map. This is why like the digital map that I'm using now is like multi-scalar. That is great, but of course when you just like really zoom down as much as you want to it basically becomes redundant. And like that's a great question, that the representation creates this, let's say, fragments. But I do not like, I'm trying to say that let's set that aside. That's like a representational chain, I would say, that architecture, urbanism, all of these like disciplines have like taught us to like say, oh, like this is a larger scale problem. No, it's not. It's if it's relational, then it's like, and if you're looking at water itself, that scale difference does not really matter, because water itself does not really have that much of a scale related differences between its relationships. If I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Very- Definitely. How's the recording? If you're going to feel more fun.